Hi, welcome everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us for today's webinar. My name is Barrett Johannesson, and in a few moments we're going to have a wonderful presentation by Ben Ray and Jonathan, and they'll both be going into what makes Zerion Solutions so powerful, and they do that by improving quality, compliance, and accelerating decision making.
All right, thanks, Barrett. While you all are filling out those polls, I wanted to go over a couple of announcements, some news and updates to begin with. On the 1st of November, we actually released our new form builder. So that form builder had been under beta for a while, and we've finally taken off that beta tag, and that is now going to be the default form builder that everyone is able to use. The second point of news I wanted to talk about was that on December 1st, if you've been currently under a free account, that is going to be the deadline for you to make a decision on what you want to do with your account. And if you want to speak with an account manager about, about what changes you want to make to your account, you can do that. If you don't know who to reach out to, you can reach out to me after this webinar, and I'll be sure to direct you to the person who can help you out with that. Now, upcoming for the rest of 2016, we have 3 webinars scheduled. The first webinar is going to be on the 16th of November, which is next week, and that webinar is going to be focusing on data collection for project managers. A couple weeks after that, we're going to have a webinar on the 7th, and that's going to be focused on integrating your data and knowing how to manage your data within iFormBuilder. And to close out the year, we're going to have a webinar on the 21st. This is going to be a special topics webinar, and I've titled it Cooking with Zerion. And what I mean by that is I've asked our implementation team to each contribute one recipe or one tip and trick that they know how to do within FormBuilder, something that the average user may not be aware of, and something that I asked them to pick something that would be helpful to know and move you closer to being a power user, so you're using the platform to the fullest of its abilities. So the team's going to be collecting a bunch of different recipes, and I'm looking forward to sharing that with everybody on the 21st.
So John, before you go into that next piece here, we have about 92% of everyone voted, so I'm just going to close that poll and share the results with you so that you have a better understanding of who's actually here today. And I'll go ahead and hide the results and then continue.
All right, so to begin the webinar, this webinar was titled Zerion Solutions, and before we can move forward, we need to make sure that we define what a Zerion solution is. And the easiest way to define what it is to look at our goals in helping out our customers. And so our Zerion solution is meant to empower enterprise field service teams with the purpose of improving quality, compliance, and to accelerate better decision making. So basically, whatever your current workflow is, we want to assist you in improving the quality of that workflow, its compliance within your regulations, and also to accelerate your ability to make decisions faster and with more knowledge. To demonstrate how we're able to do this, what I did was I challenged Ben and I gave him an example use case, and he built out a custom solution for us using the different platforms that we have, and that's what we're going to be doing today in this webinar, is going over Ben's solution, talking about it and seeing how it may be applicable to your current context as well, and hopefully you may be able to benefit from some of the things that we offer. So within this use case that I developed, there's going to be 3 key players. So we're going to meet the team. The first person within this team is named Jessica. She's a project manager for Zerion inspections. She's tasked with monitoring the progress of the inspections as well as measuring team performance. So she's going to be kind of the high-level manager looking over the entire operation. Our second player in this scenario is named Tim. Tim is a quality assurance manager. He's an expert at compliance standards, and he reviews every inspection to ensure that they meet regulations. So basically, every inspection that comes through and is submitted, Tim is going to have to review that inspection and decide if the inspection has passed the regulations or if they need to go back and make revisions. And finally, the third person on our team is named Mary, who is a field inspector. Her daily responsibility is to conduct on-site inspections, some of which are initial inspections, and some of which are also going to be re-inspections that Tim has passed back to her because they have failed compliance. And so in this scenario, we have 3 people, but if you were to extrapolate this to a larger scale, you would probably have multiple data collectors. So you would have, multiple people who fill Mary's role, as well as maybe 1 or 2 more people who fill Tim's role. And while Jessica still overlooks this entire operation. Going over the workflow a little bit more, right? The workflow begins with Mary. She's going to be conducting on-site field inspections. She's going to be going to homes and going through her inspection list and filling out this form. Once that inspection is completed, she'll be passing that form over to Tim, whose job is to evaluate the inspection and decide if it is within compliance or not. If it's not within compliance, he'll pass it back to Mary, who will then go back to the site again and make the appropriate revisions. If it is within compliance, then he will submit the record, and that inspection is considered closed or completed. During this entire process, what Jessica is trying to do is she's trying to monitor the progress of each of these inspections, and then she's also trying to look at the analytics throughout this project and make decisions to improve the quality of the operation. And currently, if they were to do this workflow with a traditional data collection method, if they were to do something like a pen and paper method, there would be a lot of challenges, including things like data entry, the physical demands of having to deliver that document to Tim, and then Tim having to give it back to Mary as well. One of the points of feedback we've gotten from a lot of customers is that because the forms are done on paper, they have to actually, once they've inspected a site and they've submitted it back, they have to revisit that site, and that point alone can cause a lot of hang-up in terms of time. And then also because you're not working with digital records, Jessica is unable to have data at her fingertips that is current and up to date to the minute. Normally what's happening is you're getting daily updates or even slower weekly updates. And so these are some of the challenges that are facing this team for this workflow. And now what I'd like to do is hand this over to Ben, and he'll talk about what I like to call the project empowerment, or the enhancements that each of the different stakeholders would like to see to do their job better.
Thanks, John. Really excited to be on this webinar to really show everyone kind of the progress we've made over the past couple months. So kind of tacking off of where John left off, we want to talk really about project empowerment, empowering these 3 players to do their job better, faster, and things like that. So first we have Jessica. Her main goals in this are really to track the inspection progress in real time. Before she never had that ability. It was all pen and paper, and she'd have to go get all these the stack of paper and look at this and be able to see this. So she really wants to track this in real time, as well as visualize performance of team members and drive up any key performance indicators that they may have. This is something that is never really doable before with paper, and now that we get data inside of a dashboard or something like that, she's really able to visualize that performance a little deeper. We also have Tim. Tim's role in this process is really crucial as a QA manager. He's spending a lot of time right now really reviewing all of these documents that come in from Mary and the other field workers. So he wants to kind of make that much faster in terms of minimizing the turnaround time there. And we also have Mary. She's out in the field, boots on the ground all day, every day, and using paper. It's the weather's causing some issues there as well. Just using paper at a minimum, she's forgetting to fill out certain things. Pairing photos and things with it are very difficult. So moving her to a custom form really reduced this data collection error that she is having. Also, at the end of the day, she's going back and filling out everything inside of Excel or a database, and she's doing a lot of double entry. She's staying up till 8 or 9 p.m. to kind of finish these at the end of the day. So we really want to empower these folks to kind of turn around the slow process they had in the past. Really accelerate this and get them moving on to bigger and better things as well.
Okay, so Ben, with that, we're going to just launch a quick poll just to gain some insight from all of you listeners. Out of all these empowerments, what are you most interested in? If you're interested in all of them, then select all of them. If there's just a couple of them, then just go with those.
I did also want to take this opportunity to see if there are any questions that have been typed in chat that you may want to ask either myself.
So, I mean, there's a couple questions coming in, but mainly people are really excited to see how this workflow is configured and what it looks like and how it can enhance their lives and their projects. So at this time, I'm just going to close the poll, and I'll quickly share those results with you. It looks like there's interest in all of these. Real-time tracking is probably lower on the list, but it's still, 44% is pretty high. I definitely agree with the three top ones: the accelerating workflows, streamlining workflows, and improving quality of data collection. With that, John and Ben, I'll hide these results and hand it back to you.
Perfect. So what we're going to be doing next is we're going to be jumping into Ben's solution that he's built out to show you all today. And the first part of that is going to be the reporting side of his solution. So this is a quick screen cap of the dashboard that Ben built to monitor the progress and the health of this operation. This is what Jessica would be looking at on a daily basis. And I just want to quickly highlight the three main areas of this. We're going to be looking at the quality of inspections with that inspection score. We're also going to be looking at the rate of inspections. So that number in the upper right is the number of approved inspectors. And then finally at the bottom, you're going to be having a table view of all of the inspections with deep details on them as well. And Ben, if I could hand this over to you, if you want to give us a quick tour of this dashboard.
Yes, certainly. So let me just pull up the dashboard here so we can take a look. And you're going to see this is basically a link that we've shared, and this is the dashboard that Jessica will be looking at and monitoring a couple of key factors on here.
So the first question I had for you is what would Jessica be looking at to tell if her team is performing well or if they need improvement?
So for that, you're really going to start to look at a couple of these KPIs. First, we have the average inspection score. This is something that right now you see is a 66%, and that really needs to be driven up. We want to get that maybe above an 80 as part of some of our corporate goals there, as well as the number of approved inspections, just how many inspections are being conducted over time, as well as based upon number of inspections per inspector to check on their quality and quantity of work.
Sounds good. And am I correct in assuming that the two charts underneath are just visual representations of each of those data points?
Yes, absolutely. So these charts and graphs that you see designed here is really a status, right? You want to see how many work orders or inspections are in progress or approved or been rejected in that pie chart. And then over on the right-hand side, number of inspections conducted over a specific time period per day and anything like that. So yeah, a little deeper dive into the data and some useful analytics there.
That's awesome. If you could take us down to the table view, I'm curious to see what we have down here. If you could talk about this a little bit.
So we have our table view here, and this is basically going to be an exact replication of the data that's being captured on iFormBuilder. You can see, we have our status, our basic details here about the location of where it's at, the score, even a site photograph here. And we're just using a couple different colors here to kind of indicate if things are awaiting approval or approved or rejected and things like that. So it's really drilling into each inspection at a record level.
Nice. Now, if I were to put myself in Jessica's shoes, and I was looking at this table of inspections, something that I would want to do, I would want to be able to sort this, right, by the different fields. I would also want to be able to look at the individual reports. And are these things possible with the dashboard?
Yeah, absolutely. So you're able to sort and filter really any of these columns here. And if you want to dig down deeper into each of these, you can actually open this View Report tab, and this is actually going to open up your entire inspection here. So this will take me directly to iFormBuilder. And inside of here, you're actually able to log in and see what that inspection report looks like when it's completed. So again, this is going to be directly integrated with that. Here's just your quick example of the report. So awesome. Yes, that's absolutely doable.
Very cool. And how many inspections are in this table right now? How many does it show?
Right now we have, I believe, about 18 inspections in here.
Okay.
So I mean, this can be filtered or show only the last month's worth, depending on what you need, or based on any filters you have up here.
Right. So I'd imagine as the inspection number grows larger, you want to look at different subsets of that, and it's possible to do within this dashboard.
Yeah, absolutely. And something to mention, I mean, you said subsets. If you want to look at everything that's approved, you can actually drill down into this information here and see, I want to see all 13 records that have been approved, and we can view that detail here. So again, drilling down into each record based on these KPIs is doable.
That's really cool. Now, right now I see that this dashboard gives Jessica a lot of the tools that she needs to make the decisions that she would want to look at in terms of analysis. But how frequently is this updated? Is she looking at daily updates, or is it weekly updates?
Yeah, so there's a couple ways you can do that. I mean, you can set up a frequency for how often this page refreshes here. I mean, as soon as the data is collected from iFormBuilder, it's sent into here real time. So as often as you look at this, it'll be there. There's also ways to set up like email schedules, so you'll get this maybe at end of a month report or something like that. So you don't have to kind of continually come in here. It'll be delivered to your inbox.
Very cool. And the last question I had for you, and you kind of touched on it already, was so Jessica has access to this dashboard. Is she able to share access with this to other people? Like, what other ways is she able to consume this information?
Certainly. This can be shared really within any internal Zerion users in a secure fashion, or you can even share a public link out and share it with folks outside your organization if the need is there.
Yeah, and actually, so within the presentation, there was a link that said link to the live dashboard, and that's exactly where this link brings you to. So when you get the PDF document after this webinar, you'll be able to follow that link and view the dashboard yourself and kind of click around and explore it too. Great. Let's move forward a little bit. And actually, before we talk about data collection, Barrett, is there anything about the reporting that people have questions on?
I think people are kind of wondering, they love how you have this inspection scenario, but not everyone does inspections on an everyday basis. So how much of this can you customize for your own kind of dashboard?
Yeah, certainly. So, I mean, this can be customized 100% to what you need. I mean, you'll see there's a lot of reporting systems out there, and I mean, this one's going to cover pretty much all of the needs that you'll have here. I mean, you have your data in a table view, and you can slice and dice it to build pie charts or bar charts or whatever that may be. It just so happens that this is an inspection workflow. So that's something maybe let's talk offline and see kind of what some of those scenarios are, and we can demonstrate how that's doable.
Great, thank you, Ben. Another question came in about this workflow specifically. You have a field where you have status in there, and so they're wondering if that status is actually a field within the form itself.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to get to shortly when we go over the form, but it absolutely is a form in the field, and it'll update the dashboard as we'll demonstrate here soon.
All right, that's it from over here. Thank you.
No problem. So that's actually a perfect segue, because we're going to move and transition into talking about the data collection for this project. And so before I have Ben show his data collection solution, I wanted to recap some of the challenges that within this use case the players were facing, and I would imagine some of these challenges are also challenges that the attendees in this webinar may also be facing in their current situation. So Mary's been having trouble with doing her data entry, just with lengthy inspection forms. It can be easy to fill that out incorrectly. Also, there are calculations that need to be done when the inspection is over, specifically that inspection score that's calculated. And this is also a point of trouble for her and an area where it's easy to make a small error. On Tim's side, he's having to deal with the physical records that Mary and any other field workers are bringing into him, and being able to manage all of those different copies and inspection records. He's not sure if it's better for him to keep the original, if he should make a copy of it and let Mary keep the original so that she's able to have it on site when she revisits them. And that starts to create a paper trail that becomes very convoluted very quickly. And then lastly, Tim's last issue is that if he does need to reissue that inspection, communicating with Mary can be difficult. If she's in the middle of an inspection, he doesn't want to interrupt her. Moreover, if she's not at his location, and he has the current inspection form, there's no way for him to get it to her. Right? And this dovetails with Mary's last challenge as well in terms of having to revisit sites. Even if it's the smallest of revisions that needs to be made, if she's left that site already, she has to go back. There's no way to work around that currently. And so that can take a lot of time out of her day. And so from here, I'll go ahead and pass this over to Ben. And Ben is going to show you the data collection side of his solution. And he's actually going to be filling out the form, and that user's question about the status field is going to be answered right here.
Thanks, John. So to really tackle this issue, I mean, we sat down, worked with the stakeholders in this, and talked about a couple of the challenges that they're having that John mentioned, and designed a form that can kind of meet this need. So this is basically a daily inspection form. I opened it up here to populate the date of the inspection, the name of the inspector, and then Mary's actually going to choose the location that she's going to for that day. So this is a drop-down list. If it does not exist, they basically either enter a new option there. So we're going to choose location 1, and that's going to look up all information associated with that, so she can verify that the address, city, and state is actually that, unless it's a different location. She's then going to go and take a quick photograph. So we'll take a picture here out our window this rainy day. And then we're going to get down here into a couple sections of, she's looking at the exterior of this location as well as the interior of the building. So you're going to see at the bottom there's an inspection score here that's 0% right now. Now as I fill this out, you're going to see the score is calculating here. So a lot of times before she had to calculate her own score out in the field, which sometimes you fat finger something and then it's incorrect. So we're going to fill this out, and you're going to get an 88 or 83% there. Now down at the bottom, the last thing that she needs to do is really sign off on this inspection to verify that she did this. Now once it's signed off, the status at the bottom here is going to change to awaiting approval, as you'll see. At this point, we need to look at sending this record over to Tim to take a look at and review this.
And so, Ben, when you submit this record, you had mentioned that we're sending it over to Tim. How does that exactly work?
So we use our assign to feature in terms of dispatching this record out. So you have an assign to field, and you can choose who you want to send it to in this case. So I would choose project manager or document reviewer or inspector, whoever that may be. And once I submit that, it's actually going to submit to the iFormBuilder server and then send over to Tim on his iPad or iPhone to fill out. So we're going to choose the person we want to assign it back to and hit done, at which point it's going to sync this record up to the server.
And then at this point, once it's up on the server, because we assigned the record to Tim, he would then receive it on his device to do the for his review.
Yeah, absolutely. He'd get a notification similar to what I just got here. New records have been assigned, meaning he can take a look at that.
Okay. And if we could go back to the dashboard, actually, I want to go ahead and show everyone this. You had mentioned that the status updates in real time.
So if we just refresh this, the dashboard, you're going to see a new entry just came in. If you remember before, we had 18 entries, so now we have 19 here. And the latest ones are going to go at the top. So we can see this one is status awaiting approval, the location I entered, as well as the score and site photograph are all located in here.
Great. And so what happens after Tim gets the record? He's then going to, is he opening the exact same record that Mary submitted?
He would be, yes. So this is one record. It's almost similar to handing the piece of paper over to you, John. So once Tim gets this notification on his device, he can sync up and it's going to download this record. And he can simply open it up, and this is where he's going to kind of QA, QC this thing and look through everything that's been captured and make sure that, yes, this is correct. It should have an 83, or maybe it needs to be sent back to Mary for a reinspection.
Good. And I noticed that the section for Tim to approve this form is also shown. I'd imagine that was done just so that for the user they can see the entire form in its entirety. But would it be possible to hide this, say, from Mary so that she can't approve her own inspection and then Tim would be the only one to have access to this?
Yeah, certainly, and that's certainly one route to go. I mean, we could hide it pretty much based upon their role in this process, right? If it's going to a QA manager, well, he needs to see additional fields than the inspector. So at this point, Tim saw the additional fields here, and he chose approve. At this point, he just needs to sign it off and enter any comments about this. We'll say it's good to go, nice work. At which point he would not need to assign it back to anyone because this is done being passed around from Tim to Mary and now can just be submitted, and we'll update the dashboard for Jessica to see. So once this is uploaded here, we can just simply refresh the dashboard again, and we should see here that now our awaiting approval just switched to approve there. So this is always going to contain the latest record, and you can see the status of this thing at any time here. We're also going to see it drove our average inspection score up from a 66 earlier to about a 67. So again, we are meeting some of the needs that Jessica have in driving this inspection score up.
Nice. That looks awesome. Bear, are there any questions for the audience?
Yeah, there is. A couple came in, but the most recent one, and I think a really interesting one, is actually about the subforms. The demo that you just showed us was all one layer. It was just that parent form. So if there were to be subforms, how do the subforms display in the table view in this dashboard? You know, for example, most of the individuals who are used to looking at these exports in Excel, they know that the subforms are their own tabs in the table.
Right, that's a great question. This is a really good segue into talking about some of the data flow automation we're going to go into here shortly. But at a high level, something you could look at doing is flattening out this information all to be on one table. Is one route to go. Or maybe you don't actually need all the subform information. You just need, in this case, all I care about is actually just the final score here. So it's all going to very much depend on your use case, whether you want to flatten it or write it to multiple different tables. But that's really where our data flow automation would come in next. Do we have any other questions?
Not right now. Thank you.
Great. So I know that based on that earlier poll that Barrett had released, that the improving data collection was something that people wanted to really learn more about. And so after going through Ben's solution, I do just want to reiterate that the improvements that you're going to see on the data collection side from using the Zerion solution is that you're going to be able to minimize errors in your data collection. And if you'll recall the form Ben had, for example, he had the pass-fail fields for each of the different areas he was inspecting. Those elements, you're going to have a wide variety of different elements you can use, and those are going to minimize the errors that you make in your data collection. Because Mary is also able to immediately assign that record to Tim, you're reducing the turnaround time and with regard to his need to review for the compliance. You're also streamlining the inspection and approval process because effectively what's going on is Mary and Tim are ping-ponging a single record back and forth. You don't need to worry about making copies of the inspection. You don't need to worry about which version is the latest version of this document. Because it's all enclosed in a single record, they're always working on the latest and the current version. And then finally, the last improvement is that this all happens instantly, right? When she submits the record, Tim gets it immediately, assuming that he's available. He's able to review it quickly. He'll sync it and approve it. Now, in the example that Ben showed, Tim approved the record. If there had been something that was out of compliance and he had to reassign it to Mary, she wouldn't even need to leave the site necessarily to do that reinspection, right? She could just submit the form, and then maybe she's getting it on her way out, and it's quick, and she can just kind of hop out of her car, go back and complete that inspection, completely eliminating the need to revisit the site. And we've found from feedback from different organizations that alone has been a huge boost to their ability to deliver quality in the work they do. Now, Ben alluded to it briefly about the data flow automation, and you all may have had this question of you have the data collection and then you also have the reporting, and you're wondering how this all ties together. How is this all working? Where's the magic behind this? And that's really in our our Dataflow Automation system. And effectively what a data flow is going to be is a data flow is a map that's going to chart the path of your data through various objects. And each of the objects is going to have a goal or a job that it does. And I wanted to talk at a high level about what the objects you're seeing on the screen are, because some of you may have never seen the data flow before, and so I want to make sure that you're understanding what you're looking at. The first object on the very left that is kind of that teal color is what we call a webhook. And a webhook is going to be a URL that is dynamically generated, and say you're working with an iFormBuilder, you're going to take that URL and set it as an endpoint. Then what's happening is each time a record is submitted, that record gets submitted to that endpoint as well, which means that the data enters the data flow, and then the data is going to traverse through the path that we've charted out here. The middle objects that are blue are called record sets, and a record set is going to be a container that holds the data that is imported through that webhook. And so your record set is going to be in charge of saying what gets stored here, and you can even set conditions to determine if a record is supposed to be stored or if it should be filtered out. You can also modify that record as it exists within the record set. And then finally, the third type of object we have on this data flow, the orange icons, or what we call actions. And actions are going to be ways that the data flow integrates with other systems, normally for the purpose of data distribution. In the case of this data flow, that top icon is showing that the record is going to be integrating with our reporting system. And then that bottom action is showing an integration with a PDF generation, a document that's generated each time a record flows into that action as well. And also, just so that you understand the direction of the data flow, a data flow always flows from left to right. So it starts coming in from the webhook, it will traverse through record sets, and then it'll find its endpoints in the actions that we have set up to integrate with other systems. At this point, I'd like to hand this over to Ben. If he could talk about kind of what each of these objects is doing at a more granular level, that would help the viewers understand what's going on within this data flow.
Yeah, certainly. So in this scenario, I mean, this is actually the exact data flow we've used for this solution. So this does relate exactly to what we're talking about here. So again, the webhook will receive this information, and it's all stored in this first blue record set here. And we have two other blue record sets with the F on them, meaning there is some filtration that's happening. So from the first record set to the second one, we are cleansing this information for what we need in our reporting platform, which in the case you saw was we don't need the details of each individual question, was it pass or fail. We just want the final score. So we're kind of cleansing that data. We don't need the metadata from iFormBuilder. We just need the maybe the date it was created or anything like that. So we're cleansing that data and keeping it very lightweight, so when we send it to the reporting system, can visualize this very quickly. Once it's through that filtered record set there, the orange icon there with the magnifying glass is going to be the reporting system, Zerion reports. And you basically set up a custom field map. So we map the status column to the data coming through an iFormBuilder of status there. And you just go through and map each of the fields individually there. And as new records are submitted, it's automatically passed through this data flow, cleansed for the analytics, and written directly into that table you saw on the dashboard there earlier.
Ben, I have a quick question about this data flow. You said that the data gets pushed from the webhook into that first record set, the one that is an empty bucket. At this point, it branches to two separate record sets. What does this mean for the data? Is the data choosing one or the other to go into? How does this alter the way it exists?
Right, so the lines you see coming out of that first record set, you can send data to both, to one, or to none at all. And that may be very dependent upon the filters that you have set up. In this scenario, I didn't go over the bottom portion yet, but when it flows to that bottom filtered record set, it is only sending that out if the inspection is finally approved, because it's sending out a customized PDF of the inspection and the result of that inspection. So again, the top record set's going to have much more records in it because everything's filtering through that. But in the bottom, it's actually applying a filter only if the status may be approved.
Cool. And so each time that record was submitted, it's going through this data flow and then to the reporting platform, and so that's why you're seeing those updates that happen instantly. Right? Now, does this mean that, for example, we just demoed this, we submitted the record twice? Were two PDFs created, or is that only happening at a certain point?
So actually, in this scenario, only one PDF is being created when it is approved. Nothing will pass through the PDF action really until it says approved in there. So the first one that came in was a awaiting inspection or awaiting approval. That one was not a PDF, but the second one was.
Oh, cool. And so what other types of actions are we able to integrate with the data flows?
So right now we're just showing a small subset of all of the actions that take place. A couple of the other ones we offer are first our SQL Server integration. So when data is submitted, it can be written directly to a SQL Server table, or it will create a new table for you if it doesn't exist. We also have a variety of actions to write back to an iForm table. So if you want to, if this is a failed inspection, maybe you want to write it back to an iForm table, or you can actually add options, add or update option lists based upon this. So those would be some of the iForm actions. We also allow you to do customized document generation, including Excel, PDF, maybe Word docs, things like that, to meet the exact document needs that you may have or need to deliver for your clients. A couple others are basically you can have a customized email. So right now our iFormBuilder email is very standard and linear, but this will open up for you to have fields maybe side by side or custom email messages based upon the results and actions that take place in the data. And we are continually adding more actions to the data flow to really make it do a lot more currently than it does today.
Cool. I'm actually going to stop you right there, Ben. And Barrett, I had prepared a third poll for the audience, asking them what types of integrations they would be using if they were to use this Dataflow automation.
Sure, it's already launched. And just a quick question. When you talk about this workflow and really going from the mobile side into the reporting and through the Dataflow automation, I mean, how much work is done for like setting that up?
Yeah, certainly. So, I mean, it's something, there is a bit of a learning curve to start using this. But basically, for this one, I mean, I'm using some very simple filters in this scenario, so I wouldn't say it's more than a day or two of setup there. And this is something that once it's set up one time for a scenario like this, I mean, it's really, there's not really much management that you need to do on this. It's just going to continually run any new records that are submitted and things like that. This can be very easily repeatable and replicatable for a second form or a second workflow as well.
Great, thank you. And while we still have the poll open, I know you'll be giving resources later, but just to mention now, if people have more questions or they want to read more material on these different sides like Zerion reporting and the Zerion Dataflow automation, where should they go to find that information?
So we do have our current help desk that most iFormBuilder users or customers are familiar with. You are going to see some sections in there for the Dataflow automation as well as the Zerion custom reports that you can refer to. There's documents or articles and videos and things like that to learn a bit more about it.
Okay, at this time I'm just going to close the poll and I'll share those results so everyone can see that. We had 58% who's interested in the dashboard and the reporting, about 50% for the custom documents, 17% for the SQL Server, 33% for the email, and 8% for other.
Okay. For those people who wrote other, I'd be curious to see what other systems they would want to integrate with. If you all feel free to enter that in chat so that Barrett can log that and let us know afterwards, that would be great. And I actually do have one last question I wanted to ask Ben about this data flow, and it kind of dovetails with what Barrett had asked about the time involved and the initial setup. But if you have this workflow and it's currently active, and you want to make a change to it, say you want to add a third integration to the data flow, what would happen? What would that process be like? Do you have to start from scratch, or are you able to pick up midstream?
And that's a great question too. I mean, you're going to see here we have two actions, right? But maybe our next one is we want to send this data to SQL Server for long-term storage. Well, you can start setting up a new record set that would appear kind of below that bottom filter there, as well as a new SQL Server action there that would just piggyback on top of what's currently there. And that's something you can do while this thing's live and being used in the field. You could always add a new one in there. Now, keep in mind, all the data is already going to be stored in these existing record sets. So we have a way to basically just manually rerun all of this information from this record set directly into SQL Server. So anything that you had in the past is not just lost in iFormBuilder. It can all be back in SQL Server like it was set up from the start. So replicating these is very straightforward. We even have a package importer and exporter where you can import a data flow into your account, or even export a data flow out to share with others.
That's awesome. Very cool. Well, those were the last questions I had for Ben, and that is the conclusion of his demo. I want to personally thank Ben for setting up this demo and being able to show it to you all. There is a lot of value that can be gained from working within the different platforms that we offer, and hopefully this demonstration is something that may be relatable to your current workflow, and you can take away something from this where you can start to see improvements in what you could be doing and how you could be gaining more value from the systems that you're using. Barrett, if there are not any other questions, you can go ahead and close this out. Otherwise, we're free to answer them.
I think the only other thing I was hoping you guys would just show them is the Zerion software website, just to show them where they can get some more information as well.
Sure. So for those of you who have been with us for a while and are familiar with iFormBuilder, I do want to just highlight that iFormBuilder is one of the softwares that we offer, and we as a company are actually called Zerion Software. And so if you go to our website at zerionsoftware.com, you're able to get more information for all of the different platforms that we spoke about today, not only the data collection, but also the Dataflow automation, the reporting. The website also has links to all of the different resources we have available for you, the Customer Success Center that Ben mentioned. We also have links for all of the previous webinars, and basically any sort of resource that we have available for the community you can find on this website.
Another question that just came in is about the sharing of the dashboard. What are the different options with sharing it? Can we share it with? Can we share it privately? Can we share it publicly? Can I share it through an email? What are my options?
Actually, all three of what you just said are certainly options. So, I mean, first and foremost, you can share it internally to other Zerion users, and that's probably the most common way you'll share internally in your organization. You can also export this information in PDF or Excel or even an HTML view and send via email to folks. You can even open up a dashboard or a view to be public, meaning you'll get a live link that you can share with anyone in the world. As long as they have an internet connection, they can view this dashboard there.
So with talking about the dashboards, can individual users actually customize their dashboard, or can I have different dashboards based off of different permissions or user types?
Yes, certainly. So every Zerion user will be basically given a set of permissions by their admin. These permissions are going to dictate if you can build your own tables, your own dashboards, really how much you can customize, or if you're just simply you can only view this dashboard. So again, it's all dependent on the different user rights, but you can customize this with color schemes and things like that, and build your own ad hoc reports based off of this information.
So Ben, from people who are current customers that are using the Zerion reporting and the dashboards and the Dataflow automation, can you share with us some of the findings that they've seen with their updated processes?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the most common workflow we've seen, and this is why John kind of shared this challenge with me to do, has been this inspection and approval workflow. And some of the most common findings they've seen have not really been, they've been from the technology, but they haven't been so much feature-oriented findings and things. They've really been, they're able to drive their reinspection rate, if an inspection failed, up or down from like a 50 or 60% chances of reinspection down to maybe a 5 or 10% chance. So they're saving a lot of time out there in terms of reassigning those inspections, driving back out to the field to that inspection site and things like that. So that's one use case.
Great, and I think that's it for now.
All right, Barrett, I do want to reiterate what Ben just said, and I'll go ahead and close this webinar out after I finish this. But the thought of using this as a topic actually came from Ben mentioning the metrics that one of the organizations who uses our platform, the success they had, where they were able to drop their reinspection rates from a 55% down to a 5%. Those were not numbers that Ben just kind of thought of. When he told me that, I was so startled by the improvement that they had that I asked him more about it. I asked him, what they were doing, what their workflow was like, and how they had found value in it. And from there, it kind of grew into this webinar presentation. And so I did want to just highlight that. And again, if anyone has any questions about this webinar afterwards, or just needs help with anything, my email address is on the end of this presentation. I'm always happy to answer questions, comments, or feedback. If you have other topics or webinars that you'd like to see, be sure to let me know, and I will do my best to make that happen. All right. So,
All right. Oh, go ahead.
If there are no more questions, we can go ahead and wrap this up.
All right, so thank you, John and Ben, for all the hard work that you guys put in for this. And thank you for everyone who's able to attend today to learn more about Zerion Solutions, and enjoy the rest of your day.